Hello everyone, my name is Hitesh and I welcome you to the fourth day of Elevate 21. The response has been phenomenal. We are very fortunate to have audience who actually want this kind of event, and we are very glad that the response has been so positive. Over the last 3 days, we have had three quiz events and six keynote speaking sessions, and they have all got tremendous response. Now, today's session is a very special one because the presenter of the keynote is one of my favorite speaker also. I listen to him all the time. His contents is best of its class. And I will give you a brief introduction about him. He's got almost 3 lakh subscribers on his own YouTube channel. His name is Abhishek Kar. He is driven by the desire to educate people about stock market and finance. I would like to give warm welcome to Abhishek for being a part of Elevate and taking a time out of his busy schedule. The topic which he'll be talking about today is very interesting if you are an investor in the market or even a trader in the market. He's going to talk about do's and don'ts for stock market investors and traders. I leave the podium to you, Abhishek. Welcome to Elevate 21.
Thank you so much, Hitesh, for this warm and cordial welcome. I'm really elated to be a part of this thing, and hopefully, will add a lot of value to our students. So let's begin. It's all okay, cool. You can hear me, Hitesh, and everything.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Amazing. So I'm starting with the session. So the moment a beginner actually enters into a stock market, there are a couple of issues which these people face. बहुत सारे उनको problems होती हैं जिसके कारण these people are wondering that what are those issues if someone can actually come and put this all into one platter. It becomes easier for us to understand कि भाई क्या चीजें चल रही है मार्केट में. तो आज की सेशन में I'm going to give you those 15 key points, 10 to 15 key points, the do's and don'ts while you enter into the market जो आपको ध्यान में रखना चाहिए, which you should keep into your brains for a successful stock market career. The very first mistake which I find amongst a lot of stock market traders as well as investors is they usually are not calculating their charges and taxes. इसका मतलब क्या हो गया? So let's take an example. You invest XYZ amount into something. Now, do you realize that there are certain charges which could be minimal, but provided the scale at which you are actually working upon. So let's say अगर आप 100 rupees invest भी करते हो, so there are brokers who are going to charge you a brokerage on that. BP charges are going to be there, and now occasionally there are pledging charges also. Likewise, when you are trading, there are certain charges like STT, brokerage, cess, etc. And later on, of course, in both the scenarios, you have to pay taxes. Even when I'm talking about taxes, once you get dividends in terms of investments, वहां पर भी आपको tax देना पड़ता है. So one big mistake which a lot of people do is कि वो लोग अपने चार्जेस को कैलकुलेट नहीं करते हैं बिफोर इन्वेस्टिंग और ट्रेडिंग. और द रीजन व्हाई दे डोंट डू इज बिकॉज नो वन इज वोकल अबाउट दिस थिंग. कोई ज्यादा आके इसके बारे में बात नहीं करता. एवरीवन इज हुक्ड अप विद स्ट्रैटेजी, एवरीवन इज हुक्ड अप विद फंडामेंटल एनालिसिस एंड टेक्निकल एनालिसिस विदाउट इवन अंडरस्टैंडिंग एट द एंड व्हाट मैटर्स इज नेट गेन. तो पहला चीज है, अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल डोंट कैलकुलेट दीज थिंग्स. तो जिससे पहले कि आप इन्वेस्ट एंड ट्रेड करें, मेक श्योर यू आर एक्चुअली कैलकुलेटिंग दीज थिंग्स. द नेक्स्ट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज you have to buy bargains, not cheap. What does this mean? हम लोग अक्सर देखते हैं कि a lot of people get enthusiastic whenever there is some stock which is coming at 5 rupees, 4 rupees, 2 rupees, because that comes into their budget. उनको लगता है क्योंकि ये स्टॉक इतना सस्ता है, because this stock is so cheap, I should actually buy, which is completely wrong. Warren Buffett, when he quotes that you have to buy cheap, what he essentially means, you have to buy bargains. Bargains in the sense when some good companies with top-notch companies are available at attractive valuations. Let me give you an example. Well, a lot of us would admit this thing. जो FMCG stocks होते हैं, fast moving consumer goods like Hindustan Unilever, Nestle, इस तरह के जो Asian Paints, all these stocks are usually very expensive, right? एक P valuation भी ज़्यादा होता है, and to make it very simple, इनके prices बहुत ज़्यादा रहते हैं. So a lot of us remain confused कि यार ये हमको कभी सस्ते नहीं मिलते. But we all know in February to March 2020, when this COVID thing actually strike back and the markets actually fell till 7,500, we were getting them at a relatively cheaper price. Same goes with various companies like Reliance was available at 800. So we need to understand that instead of buying crap stocks which have no fundamentals or technicals at those levels, it is much better to buy these quality stocks. So always try to buy a bargain, not cheap. तो आप प्राइस के बेसिस पे उसको डिसाइड मत करो. The third thing is very important. Be it trading, be it investing, always try to diversify. Often a lot of people come up to me and say, sir, ये वाला शेयर खरीद लें क्या, हम सारा पैसा इस पे 1 लाख रुपए लगा दें, should we buy this type of share? We are going to put up almost 2 lakh rupees over here. My simple answer to all of them is absolute no. Why? Because you don't know. You might have done all your maths. आपने अपना calculation कर लिया है. You might have done all your analysis. You might have done almost everything which is into your capacity. But eventually you might realize कि भाई ये कंपनी डूब सकती है. लेट मी गिव एन एग्जांपल. अगर किसी ने आज से 10 साल पहले सोचा होता दैट वीडियोकॉन इज एक्चुअली अ वेरी गुड कंपनी, लेट्स इन्वेस्ट इनटू इट बिकॉज each house is having a television of Videocon, a remote of Videocon, or let's say a speaker of Videocon, and let's say if they would have invested all their money into Videocon, we all know what would happen in the fate. उनका अभी पैसा zero हो गया होता. Likewise, a lot of people thinking that DHFL could be the next big NBFC, they started investing their entire money into this stock DHFL. No doubt, at one point of time, it was a star performer. But just imagine for those people who thought of putting all their money just into that one stock, they would have burnt their hands. तो हमेशा diversify करो. एक ideal question निकलेगा, कितने में diversify करें? When you are investing, you should at least have 4 stocks, at least. And it should be between 4 to 12 stocks, it's better. But minimum तो 4 होना चाहिए. And even while you are trading, let's say you're doing day trade, let's say you're doing a swing trade, you should at least have 3 to 4 stocks out there. So diversification is important, both when we are talking about trading एज वेल एज जब हम इन्वेस्टिंग की बात कर रहे हैं. तो 3 पॉइंट तो मैंने आपको बता दिए. नेक्स्ट एक बहुत बड़ा ये चीज चलता है सर, पेनी स्टॉक्स बाय करने का. समथिंग रिलेटेड टू द प्रीवियस पॉइंट ओनली, दैट बिकॉज दिस इज सो चीप, दिस इज जस्ट 10 पैसा, दिस इज जस्ट 1 rupee. इफ आई बाय दिस एट 1 rupee, it will go to 2 rupees, I make a lot of profit. Well, my dear friend, you need to understand that the very reason why it is quoting at 1 rupee is there is fundamentally something wrong over there, or something bad happened over there. कोई corporate governance का. Why idea is today available at single digit? उसका सिंपल सा रीजन है, बिकॉज देयर वर इश्यूज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू डेट. उनका कर्जा बहुत ज्यादा था. देयर वर इशू विद रिस्पेक्ट टू देयर, रिसेंटली वी हैव सीन दैट द प्रमोटर, द वन हु एक्चुअली हुज बेबी वाज वोडाफोन आइडिया, ही हिमसेल्फ हैज एक्चुअली क्विट. तो आपको समझना उधर कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स है. इट्स नॉट जस्ट लाइक आइडिया को इन्वेस्टर्स ने सिंगल डिजिट पे रखा है. देयर इज अ रीजन व्हाई despite such huge rally in the last 2 years, Yes Bank hasn't performed. So my obvious suggestion to all of you would be कि penny stocks, just don't think कि 1 रुपए की चीज हमेशा 2 रुपए हो जाएगी, या 2 रुपए की चीज 4 रुपए. In fact, there are times you look into companies like Unitech, it has been penny stocks for ages now. Suzlon, again ages now. और उससे भी कम 1 rupees पे unknown names आएंगे. So please don't put your hard-earned money, because quality will always command a higher price in the near future, and lower quality will always be available at cheaper, because there is no demand, no interest. तो वो चीज हो गई. Another very important point which I personally feel is really important to communicate in this world of social media: don't try to compare your first year into the stock market with someone's 12th year into the stock market. मतलब क्या है? We often see a lot of investors and traders trying to float their profit and loss statements, trying to brag about how much money they made into the market, trying to tell that this is how they traded into futures and options and made a lot of money. मेरे दोस्त, आपको समझना है, first, everything which is shining out there is not the reality, it is an illusion. First, in 95% cases, you don't know, they could be having some vested interest out there. The second thing, let's assume even if they had made this sort of money, you cannot deny the fact they have spent 8 years, 12 years, 10 years into the market. इतने साल, इतने वर्ष लगाने के बाद they've actually made this kind of money. So my humble suggestion to all of you is, when you are starting up, please refrain from watching all those things. Instead, focus on learning. Another which is a very important do, which a lot of people don't do, is investing into your knowledge. And आज के टाइम पे if someone comes and tells me कि सर हमारे पास पैसा नहीं है, I don't have money to buy books, I don't have money to buy, okay, get it, but you still have ample of opportunities. For example, like this is a free of cost event. One could have easily come over here, attend this thing, be a part of quiz, win some prizes, and as long as you are curious to learn a few things, you could. So it's just that जहाँ चाह है वहाँ राह है. In Hindi we say, when there is a will, there is a way. So you have to find your ways. And in the world with the advent of technology and internet, it has become very feasible for people to get into all those things. So आप YouTube का use कर सकते हो. For example, as Hitesh introduced, I have my own YouTube channel where I put up a lot of things. Then there are other good YouTube channels. There are Instagram handles who are providing now a lot of mix of info and entertainment, that is infotainment. There is Twitter, there are Google websites. There's so many things. In fact, I would say that even if you are planning to invest, let's say 2000 rupees, आप कुछ नहीं तो आप online, you can buy an annual subscription of Kindle. I'm not asking you to buy that device, but you can even access that on your desktop, and it hardly costs 9.99 or something like that. तो आपको समझना है, it has to come within you. You cannot just go with impartial knowledge and start investing or trading over there. It applies to both. Next thing is, which I realized personally twice in my life. Once recently in the month of May 2020, not recently, but May or June 2020, is you have to be flexible when it comes to market. What I've often observed is कि मार्केट में हम जब आते हैं ना, हम एक प्रीसेट नोशन के साथ आते हैं. व्हाट इज दैट प्रीसेट नोशन? लेट्स से इफ आई हैव स्टडीड अपॉन वन पर्टिकुलर स्टॉक, आई हैव स्पेंट 5 days इन एनालाइजिंग दैट, आई कम टू द मार्केट, लेट्स से वो फेब 2020 में ही आता हूँ, एंड नाउ आई एम फोर्सिंग माई सेल्फ टू होल्ड ऑन टू दैट, क्लिंग ऑन टू दैट स्टॉक जस्ट बिकॉज मैंने इतने दिन का एनालिसिस किया, विदाउट इवन रियलाइजिंग दैट द डायनामिक्स सडनली चेंज्ड because of the COVID-19. For this, I often quote one of my quotes that markets are more like amoeba. They keep on changing their shapes every now and then. So you have to be flexible and you need to adapt based on the market conditions. तो आपको समझना है market is supreme. आप गलत हो सकते हो, market गलत नहीं हो सकता है. The only thing which can rescue you is stop loss. तो चाहे आप ट्रेड कर रहे हो, आपका एक स्टॉप लॉस होना चाहिए. इवन फॉर इन्वेस्टिंग आई वुड रिकमेंड यू शुड हैव एन एग्जिट पॉइंट. आई विल टेल यू, फॉर एग्जांपल, मैं इन्वेस्टिंग के बेसिस पे अपना एग्जिट पॉइंट कैसे रखता हूँ. लेट्स से आई बॉट पर्टिकुलर XYZ स्टॉक ऑन अ पर्टिकुलर थेसिस दैट दिस particular company is going to deal only with let's say tractors. ठीक है, एग्जाम्पल ले रहे हैं. Now suddenly after 1 year in the management commentary I listen कि अब this company is thinking to venture into coconut oil. Now just imagine, this particular company was into tractors and suddenly there is a huge deviation. They are trying to go into coconut oil which has no reference. तो जैसे ही ये मेरा thesis बदल जाएगा, even if the share is pricing at a higher price, I'll go out of it. Another, तो आप अपने शेयर हमेशा ऐसा बनाओ. So for example, if you have decided that I'm going to stay invested into a particular company only and only जब वो back to back 6 क्वार्टर तक उसका सेल्स नंबर decent, consistent या फिर बढ़ता है, जैसे ही 6 क्वार्टर तक ये कम होने लग जाता है, I'll exit. So you have to set your rules. Same goes with trading. You have to make your rule कि 2% का drawdown आते ही I have to shut down the screen, I have to go out. Likewise, you have to make a rule कि there are particular stocks which are insanely volatile at this point of time. मैं उनको छूंगा ही नहीं. इतना volatile है कि मेरा पैसा जल जाएगा, मैं छूंगा नहीं. Beginners, you have to decide that I am only going to trade Nifty first if I'm dealing with options, because Bank Nifty is more volatile. तो मैं Bank Nifty में बाद में जाऊंगा. So this ways you have to be flexible and you have to set your own rules. Next is a very important thing. It's a do that you need to maintain your trade logs. जब भी आप trading करते हो, you need to understand this thing that we humans always feel that we are very wise, we are very intelligent, and we can retain everything. And I put this question straight to, even yesterday I was talking somewhere and I had put this question to the audience, and today also I'll put, remember कि 5 days पहले आपने lunch में क्या किया था? What did you have in your lunch in the before 5 days? I am pretty sure a lot of you may not be able to visualize, provided it was a very lavish lunch. The point I'm trying to make is we cannot retain a lot of things. हमको लगता है हमको सब याद रहता है, हमको नहीं रहता है. So what you got to do is, आपको एक trade log बनाना है. There you have to write down the trades which you took. What were the learnings you took? Why you made a loss? What was the amount of loss? What big blunder you did? And every weekend you have to review it until unless you become a master. Anyways, master तो कोई होता नहीं है बाजार में, but you need to do this thing. This way you will be able to retain a lot of things into your cerebellum. आपको याद रहेगा कि भाई ये वाली चीज मुझे गलती मैंने करी थी, अगले बार जब बैठोगे तो आपको ध्यान रहेगा. So this will actually penetrate into your subconscious mind. So that's another thing. Next, you got to understand that there is, when you come into investing or trading, there is a lot of noise everywhere. Noise का मतलब क्या होता है पहले समझो. Noise मतलब शोर शराबा नहीं. Noise means there is plenty of information overload which is going everywhere. I'll give you a very simple example. Even when I'm talking about television, when you go to television, there would be close to 20 analysts who will be recommending you something. And now there could be a possibility that one channel is giving you a buy signal on one particular stock, another signal of channel is giving you sell on the same very stock. Or there could be a clear cut thing that almost all the analysts are giving you the same thing. Same when you go to Twitter, everyone is having their own version of telling why to buy this stock or why to sell this stock. And believe me, all of them have certain motive. Why? Because maybe either they are holding on to it, maybe their egos are inclined with that particular stock. So the very important factor over here is you need to completely avoid noise. आपको noise हटाना, ये शोर शराबा. There is a reason why the legendary Warren Buffett is actually staying in Omaha, which is sort of एक तरीके से आप समझ लो village है, instead of staying near Wall Street. It's not just because he doesn't want to leave his old house. It's also because he wants to cut down the noise. He knows कि अगर वो वॉल स्ट्रीट के पास जाएंगे तो हर दिन बाय सेल ये वो फंड मैनेजर्स विल कम टू विजिट हिम, लॉट ऑफ chaotic things will happen, and that's why to clear his mind he's staying. By the way, today is Warren Buffett's birthday when we are discussing upon this, so wish him a lot of blessings. The only thing which I envy about him is he still has a Coke and burger every day and still he doesn't suffer from anything, which gladly he shouldn't, but I don't know what sort of healthy habit is that. So that also proves that if you are into stock markets and if you are happy, if you are learning, you are going to live longer. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger has already set that example. So ये एक और चीज हो गई. So you have to avoid noise. Another important thing is a lot of people fail to do this thing. You need to pause. Pause मतलब क्या हो गया? Let's say if I have a losing streak of 4 days, ठीक है, मैं 4 दिन तक lose कर रहा हूँ ट्रेडिंग में, मेरे एक दिन I'm taking an example, 50,000 loss हो गया, 40,000 हो गया, 20, 30 ऐसा हो गया. Now there is a possibility I have a lot of capital, a pool of capital, I can continue into the market for another 300 days. But no, the very fact that 3-4 दिन से I'm making loss, or maybe the things are not working in my favor, it's an indication by the market that hey, either your system is going haywire, it needs some repairing, or the markets are not conducive enough at this point of time to trade your particular system. इधर आपको एक पॉज लेना है. I've seen a lot of people who are just desperate. I always say this thing, you don't have to, you have to do trading for living, not live for trading. There is a subtle difference. कुछ लोग होते हैं जो ट्रेड करते हैं ताकि वो अपनी जीवन उधर चला सके, बट कुछ लोग तो ट्रेडिंग करने के लिए ही जी रहे हैं कि रोज वी हैव टू ट्रेड, which is wrong. No professional trader until unless who is working into a prop desk or a hedge fund is actually trading every day. They might be monitoring all their trades and investments on a daily basis, but they're not trading every day. तो इधर से ही आपको समझना है कि जब भी आपको बैक टू बैक लॉस हो रहा है, अपना एक रूल बनाओ. 3 days तक अगर मेरा लगातार लॉस, तो मैं 2 दिन तक ट्रेड नहीं करूंगा, सिस्टम बंद, मोबाइल से आई विल अनइंस्टॉल द ऐप, अगेन द नेक्स्ट वीक आई विल कम बैक. तो इस तरह के अपने रूल्स बनाओ. नेक्स्ट, it's very important that whether you are trading, whether you are investing, set up realistic goals. What is realistic goals? I often am surprised to see when newcomers actually come up to me and say, when I tell them कि यार साल भर का even if you are getting 30%, it's very good, it's way too good, and they are like अरे 30%, हमने तो अभी 200% कमाया 2 महीने में. Now you need to understand market goes through various cycle. Last 2.5 years have been very kind, especially after March 2020 have been very kind, because out of 5,000 shares, even if you would have invested in any of the 4,000 companies, तो आपको कुछ ना कुछ प्रॉफिट तो बनना ही है. So please don't, I always say that you don't need to miscalculate your luck as a skill. हम में से काफी सारे लोग हमारे लक को स्किल मान लेते हैं, which is completely wrong. What you got to understand over here is कि अभी का टाइम अच्छा चल रहा है इसलिए रिटर्न आगे अच्छे चल रहे हैं, but you need to have realistic expectations, otherwise बाद में you're going to mess up. So in my opinion, the fixed deposits are giving like 5 to 6%, bonds are giving 7 to 8% at max, savings account is giving 2%, current account is not giving you anything, mutual funds on an average is giving 10, 11, 12%. So anything above that is actually good, because market में आयो तो you should always remember which is going to be the next do, that is compounding. I'll explain you. तो ये आपको समझना है. So please have realistic targets. So अब इसमें से कुछ क्वेश्चन होगा, but then I have a very small capital. I just have 1,000 rupees to trade. If I start targeting only 30%, I'll just make 300 rupees. How I'm going to survive? How I'm going to run my family? So that's the point, my dear friend. Being a full-time trader, I can give you this guarantee that you can be a full-time trader only and only when you're psychologically free of all the nuances of paying the bills, paying the rent, and all those things. And that's one of the reasons why Paul Tudor Jones also runs a hedge fund. He does some consulting, he does a lot of other things rather than just trading. There is a reason why biggest of the biggest traders also do something parallelly. So psychologically आपको free होना है, तो you cannot just do with 1,000. So use that 1,000 rupees to learn a lot of things, but eventually you have to go with a pace. That also gives me another do's, that when you are starting, start with smaller amount, because when you are starting, your intention should be only to learn, to evolve. Because earning के लिए market is not going anywhere. I'm pretty sure a lot of young people are listening to me. आप लोगों की age अगर it is between 15 to 25, just imagine even if you are going to stay alive for another 50 years, मैं conservative ले रहा हूँ, 50 to 60 years भी आप जियोगे, तो उन 60 years में even if you are able to devote 3 years of dedicated time to learn the various nuances of the market, 100% अपना देखें, so that is going to make you much better in terms of returns and long-term wealth. Even Warren Buffett created a major chunk of his wealth after 60. मैं ये नहीं कह रहा हूँ आप 60 के बाद बनाओ, आप उससे भी पहले बना सकते हो, but this is something you have to. So start small. Since I mentioned a point about compounding, it's a very important thing. Whenever you are investing, this is a do. Always think from a perspective of compounding. आपको ये नहीं देखना कि मुझे आज इस साल 20% ही बना है. You have to think that ये 20% जब compound होता जाएगा तो मेरा amount कैसे बढ़ेगा. There is a wonderful rule called power of 72. What does it mean? आपको जितना percentage return मिलेगा, whatever return you are expecting on a particular asset class, 72 से उसको divide कर दो, उतने time में आपका पैसा double होगा. So let's take an example. You say I am an exceptional person. मैं हर साल 36% बनाता हूँ. What does this mean? Every second year you're going to double your wealth. So let's say you started with 1 lakh rupees. अगर 36% you are an expert, तो next year वो 2 lakh हो जाएगा, उसके next year वो 4 lakh हो जाएगा, उसके next year 8 lakh, उसके next year 16 lakh, 32 lakh, 64 lakh, and then you cross the crore mark. Now 36% is not easy, my dear friend, but it depends. You don't never know. There could be some experts, because Jim Simons, one of the fabulous traders, before this people thought that traders don't make a lot of money. For 20 years consecutively, he has averaged a CAGR, compounding annual return of 65%, and this is after he has paid up his clients and all those things. So there is immense potential, provided you know the right path. And finally, इस पे मैं एक last point इस पे लगा देता हूँ, that whenever you are trying to trade, there are a couple of mistakes which you should clearly avoid. Trading specific, you don't need to see the fluctuations on the screen. जब आप वो देखोगे रेड हो रहा है, ब्लू हो रहा है, ग्रीन हो रहा है, वो बार बार आप देखोगे ना, that messes up with your psychology. So it's very very important कि जब भी वो changes हो रहे, you don't look into this thing. This is number one. Second, don't cover your entire screen with 7 and n number of indicators. I've seen a lot of people who, in the thirst of finding out which indicator works best in trading, they are putting up hundreds and tons of indicators on the screen. ये वाली गलती आप please मत करो, because it will actually lead into analysis paralysis. If you have a lot of indicators on the screen, it will lead to analysis paralysis. The third thing, which in terms of trading, you need to specify, is that trading is a stressful thing. 80% is psychology, 20% is technicals. So work on psychology. There is a wonderful book by the name of Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. You can actually prefer reading this book. This is a wonderful book. ये हो गया तीसरी चीज. Now the same thing, if I talk about the investors, there are a couple of things you need to avoid. Always avoid companies which are having high debt, high कर्जा, जिसमें बहुत ज़्यादा loans होंगे. उन कंपनी से थोड़ा संभल के रहो. Why? Because these kind of companies in the long run could be into trouble if they are not able to generate sufficient cash. अगर वो अच्छे से नहीं कमा पाए. I'm just giving you. Second, you don't always have to do an Einstein level of analysis in order to buy stocks. You just need to use common sense. I'll give you a simple example. This lead wala thing, which actually came into Maggie, happened a couple of years back. A lot of people panicked. Arey, Maggie khatam, Nestle khatam, no one is going to buy this thing. And within a month, what we find is students in the colleges and the schools, they're actually asking for a lot of Maggie noodles from the grocery stores, and they're even ready to pay 200, 300 rupees for 20 rupee packet. What does this mean? There are some habits which cannot be changed even in the longer run. क्या आप brush करना छोड़ोगे? Will you actually stop brushing your teeth? Will you stop eating, consuming Maggi? Will you stop consuming Horlicks? Think that way. बहुत बार it's just the common sense thing which is going to help you out. Next, if you don't know anything about the markets, and you still want to invest over here, the best alternative is index fund. आप index fund या फिर ETFs के through आप invest करो, that's the best thing. And the final thing which is common to all of those things is, which I already said, is never ever try to confuse luck with skill. तो हमेशा humble रहो, never let this ego thing ride over your head कि यार मैंने तो अभी 1 साल पहले बनाया था इतना पैसा तो आगे भी बनाऊंगा. नो, बिकॉज इट जस्ट टेक्स वन ट्रेड और वन इन्वेस्टमेंट for the markets to show you the reality कि boss आप गलत है. So I hope I have actually summed up a lot of this thing. Always have a proper investment and trading goal before you go into the market. एक बार आपने ये चीज बना ली है, आपकी investing trading goal उस basis पे करो. And please never think of a very short run. Even if you are trading, think कि यहाँ से मैं 6 साल बाद कहाँ पहुँचना चाहता हूँ. Never try to become an overnight sensation. So over to you, Hitesh.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. This was actually very insightful, and I have actually sat through the whole session and listened to you carefully.
Amazing.
And
Thanks.
about the Warren Buffett thing, whenever I have a burger and cook, I think the same thing. If Warren Buffett can, why can't I? I'm not even half his
Absolutely.
age. But you know
Yeah,
what?
true.
Different bodies.
True,
Yeah.
true.
So, I mean, our viewers have got a lot of interesting questions. I don't think so we can take all of it, but I'll try to get answers for most of it. I mean, you talked about diversification importance kind of thing. Then, I mean, if I am supposedly a new time investors, how do I know that? How should I diversify? As in, how do I pick stocks, or how do I diversify? Do I go for just sector diversification and pick up the top companies, or do I? There can be multiple companies from same sector also.
Okay, so based on the age of the investor, I don't mean 17, 18. By the time they have entered into the stock market, I'll make it very simple. So let's take an example. It's a very fresh investor who has entered into the market. Their initial diversification should be only within blue chip companies. So all you need to do is you just need to go on to, there are plenty of wonderful websites over there based on market capitalization. Just search for the first 40 companies, do your basic analysis, and as I said, your common sense that which ones do you think can survive on a longer run, let's say 20, 25 years, because only if the company is going to survive for a long period of time, you are going to make money. So you just do this thing. So that would be for the basic first year or second year investor, so that they get a feel of the market, and while getting the feel, they also don't burn their hands, because the intention of conducting this session is the mistakes which we have done in the past should not be repeated by the audiences. So that's number one. Once you have certain experience, obviously in this 2 years, it's not like you won't be analyzing other companies. You might be looking into some mid caps. You might be looking into what is there in the mutual funds portfolio. You might be looking into small caps. Now what you can do is, if your age is less, always remember, the higher your age goes, so let's say you are now 40, 45, your exposure into small cap and mid caps has to shrink down. Why? Because the safety cushion is going less. But when you are little young, you can have some exposure into mid cap and small cap, because there is a high possibility of doubling, tripling, or even having those 10x, 20x stories which we hear, 50x, 60x. There's a high possibility, because a large cap company will grow at a steady pace of 10-15% CAGR. Okay, but a small company, if it has potential and if you have figured it right, suddenly when it goes into another genre, let's say a small cap company turns into mid cap, and if it's a good company later on turns into a blue chip in the next 10 years, your 10 rupee invested is how it converts into 10,000 rupees. That's like 100, 1000x. So that's the second thing. Third, since you rightly mentioned, when you are diversifying after this, so let's say you have 3 years of experience now, 2 to 3 years, now you have to do onto various bases. One is your risk basis. So you're going to take low beta stocks, you're going to keep some proportion. Low beta is something which when the index moves, it doesn't move very swiftly along with it. Slowly it moves. And a high beta is something like Just Dial, IndusInd Bank, which goes very volatile into the markets. So the exposure over there has to be a little low. The second is sectoral, because it's always important to understand that the markets work in cycles. So right now, if banking and financial is working for, let's say, 5 years, there's a high possibility next 5 years it could be metals. Metals, we have already seen since the last 1.5 years, they have started performing. Likewise, the next 5 years could be anything, technology. So I'm just saying, you need to do your research. So try to make a mixed bag that, okay, I'm going to take 2 technology, 2 banks, 2 small caps, I'm just giving an example, and 2 anything else of your this thing preference, 2 FMCG. So this is something which you can make. The third and the most important way through which you can actually diversify is, as I said, you need to have your own goals set. So let's say you are someone in your 20s Your goal is that I don't need to touch this money for the next 15 years. This is my SIP which I am doing, let it be. So now what you can do is, because you're into your early 20s or 20s, you can even have 40% exposure into mid cap and small cap after some research. Because now what happens is, since you're not going to touch, so you're not going to hamper the compounding process. And eventually that is going to, and once you reach that 40-45 level, your diversification should not only be in equity, then you need to also have decent amount of exposure into debt, fixed instruments. That okay, 6-7% milega, but what if market suddenly crashes? I still have those 7% intact. So this is how one can actually do that diversification.
It's actually pretty insightful. Then I got a similar questions related to a similar field that, I mean, as we are aware that investing is a long-term process. It's not for one. If you want to create a proper wealth, 10, 15, 20 years, maybe more. And we also hear people saying that if you invested so much in Infosys in 95, you would have got this much right now, that possibly. We hear all those things, TCS. The point is this, how do I find the Infosys and TCS of right now at this time? And how does one go about
So
shortlisting it?
okay, so I'll give you a blunt answer. All have heard the Wipro story mainly. That is, if you held on for 30 years, there is one guy who held on, like who had 10,000 rupees invested, and that has become 700 crores. Now, we don't get into the gist of that story. The first thing is, 10,000 30 years back was a big sum. Okay, that was close to some lakhs and crores at this point of time. And the second thing is, that was luck by chance. Reason is because that guy held on to the shares because he was obligated towards Azim Premji's father. If you read that entire story, you will realize, because his father had given employment to a lot of people, so these people promised, we are not going to sell your shares. And we all know villagers have that trust thing that once we have given एक बार वचन दे दिया तो हम उससे मुकरते नहीं, and that's the reason why I held on. Even when you look into Aisha's story, the fund managers who invested over there, they themselves said there was another deal which was going on with Volvo. They all invested because of the deal which was going to materialize with Volvo, which didn't happen. On the contrary, this bike actually came and it went up, which even the fund managers didn't know. And also, you need to understand, we are talking about the times when there were hardly 50 to 60 good stocks and no other stocks. So the sample size was very small. The very first challenge right now is that we have 5,000 stocks. That's number one. Second thing is, you also need to understand, at that point of time, India's growth rate was at very nascent stage. So let's say it was at 100. So the potential to reach till 100 was very high. There was a big gap between that. So anyone who was buying at that level was already getting that sort of compounding return. Third thing, how many people have you personally noticed who were holding onto their shares for 30 years? Plain and simple. Go and ask. It would be hardly only your grandfather or someone who probably held on to that Reliance ka physical wala shares. Those would be the common things because of the charm which Dhirubhai Ambani had. So that's the only one or two such cases, nothing else. So my point over here is, please don't look after this thing. I'll give you a very simple example. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala held on to Titan from 3 rupees. Okay, everyone says he's someone who's picking up diamonds out there. Now ask yourself, how many more Titans in the last 20 years he has got? You check out his portfolio and you would realize he hardly had anything other than Titan and Lupin, right? And it's not like he has stopped investing. Every year, last year he invested in Tata Motors. Before that he invested into JP Associate, Yes Bank, a lot of those things, DHFL. What I'm trying to come up with this thing, you can't predict which one is going to be the next Infosys or TCS. You just have to do your best research, pick up those 10 stocks and have the faith that yes, this could be the next big thing, and hold it for a long period of time. Out of those 10, maybe 2 will go unlisted. They won't even exist into the market. 3 would give you maybe 3x, 4x after the compounding thing. 2 would give you cost to cost, and that 1 or 2 stocks, that would become your Infosys and Wipro. So your thing is not to look for that one Wipro. Look for 10 good stocks which have the possibility of becoming the next Wipro. That's the way.
So basically, it's a game of probability. You're saying that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
You tell me, Hitesh, how many people knew that everyone is talking about Bajaj Finance right now? It went 50x. How many people were talking about this thing 10 years back? I still remember I was into the market. No one was talking about that.
no one was talking. I remember my father holding the share called Pampasa. That's no one knows about that company now, and the company is
Absolutely.
listed. So I mean, yeah, that time it was a hot stock when it came.
Same. R Power, when it came up with an IPO, that was a hot stock at that point of time. You provide a lot of people who are newcomers over here. They don't know Bhale. Even today, people, just because it is cheap, it was a sort of most sorted blue chip company, and people don't know. You won't find it on charts because charts don't show splits and bonuses and all those things. It was quoting at 2200 when people were giving a recommendation, it will go to 5000, 2200, and now just look at the level, and it has been 13 years. So that's the case. Yeah.
I mean, you can never say which one.
Yeah.
So, I
True,
mean,
true.
you talked a bit about the news and the importance it plays. How does one filter good news or a noise around it?
Okay. The best part is don't listen to news. I know this could be hampering some this thing, but my suggestion would be, even if you're looking for a news, don't look at it from the perspective that I am going to decide my judgment on the basis of what's given in the news. कि quarter result अच्छा है तो now I'm buying dividend announce को तो buy नहीं. That should not be. News should be restricted only to gain knowledge about the current developments into the company and what exactly is happening where you have invested. You also need to understand, historically it has been proven, if everything which we see on the screen was so damn correct, each person watching a television would have been millionaire by now, and that's clearly not what we see. So news ko you should actually avoid. Even Warren Buffett, when he himself has set an example, he just reads newspaper and he just gets a gist of information and is looking into company statement. Because what happens is, on news channels often a lot of analysts are trying to impose their views upon you. With due respect to everyone, some are good, but most of them are actually going to brainwash you into a wrong direction, and you might start feeling कि नहीं, उस analyst ने बोला था ना XYZ stock अच्छा है तो ये अच्छा है. Even if it is going down, you keep on holding on to it, and then what happens is, then we go into that complaint mode. अरे इस analyst ने बोला था I picked at 100, now it is 2 rupees. That's it. It's your fault. It was not his business is to gain the eyeballs. He is doing his business rightly. You are not doing your business correctly.
Sometimes they recommend the stocks which are part of their own personal portfolio.
And we saw an example, I guess, a few months back.
I can't take the name,
Yeah.
but recently,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, we talked about diversification in the stocks, but if you look at all the funds or active funds, they have like 30, 40, 50 stocks in them. So do you think that there is a good chance we should invest there and make sure that the at least returns are stable rather than investing ourselves in 7 to 8 stocks?
So, see, basically, these PMS or mutual funds actually exist is because everyone cannot be in a position to give so much of time into the markets. हर किसी के पास उतना समय नहीं है कि they can monitor market, they can do analysis and all those things. So for those people, they have कि चलो एक manager है who is well educated, who has done his research, and he is going to do it on your behalf for a certain fee. तो वो उसके लिए रहता है. Now there are two ways with which people try to do this thing. One, they try to replicate the constituents of those funds and try to invest into those things. Is it correct? No, it's not correct. A lot of people, they actually followed a very famous investor from South who was investing into small cap and mid cap almost 2 years back, 2 to 3 years back. He had some famous picks like Leal Enterprise करके थे, and there were a couple of companies. And they realized that the fund manager is still enjoying his life, but these people's portfolio is, even in this market, is down by 50 to 60%. Just imagine, even in this kind of market. The point I'm trying to make is, when you're trying to replicate someone or some fund, first you don't know their risk appetite, you don't know their capital size, you don't know what could be their next move, because they're disclosing every quarter. तो उस quarter के बीच में उन्होंने कुछ ले लिया या बेच दिया, you won't realize by the time the damage would have been done. So आप अगर फंड में इन्वेस्ट करें, if you're trying to invest in fund, the only reason should be because I don't have time, this is not my prime profession, I am actually busy with my job or business, so for the next 20-30 years I'm going to just do my SIP. That should be the only reason. Second, my suggestion would be, see, even if you do some bit of common sense analysis with some basic parameters, and if your age is not above 50, you can still come up with really good stocks. Hold it for a long period of time. As I said, 10 लोग हैं, उसमें से 2 खत्म हो जाएंगे. Just assume that 2 will just vanish out of this thing. But even if now this is a probability, अगर उसमें से 4 आपके अच्छे हो गए, so you're going to make 10x of your wealth. अगर उसमें से 5 हो गए, you can make 20x. And that's how Vijay Kedia sir, I'll give you an example, Hitesh. Vijay Kedia sir was a very famous investor. He bought his first multi-bagger by reading a magazine. He bought his first multi-bagger called Punjab Tractors. So we talked about news. So he didn't listen to what the analyst was saying. He just understood the thesis कि rural India उस time पे बढ़ रहा है. Rural India would demand a lot of tractors. Tractors will be sold, and this is a prominent company. Likewise, he bought Atul Auto also. कि auto rickshaws तो India में उस time पे चलना ही था. So do you see? So he saw the news, but he didn't got influenced कि news से मैं उधर हो जाऊँ. He is taking up those things. So you can also do those things. You just need to put, even if someone is ready to put 1 hour every day, they can actually make out into the market.
True, true, true. Obviously, basically, if you can do it yourself, why put your money in someone else's hand?
Yes, true,
Simple as
true,
that.
true.
And I got something because I'm myself a futures and options trader.
Okay.
Trader for almost 13 years now. So,
Wow.
so my questions is like, what are your views on stock options? Because you said maybe index options are a better judgment of the market, but do you think even stock options are a good options, and they be hedged using the index options again?
Yes. Now, I don't want to complicate the hedging part. It could go very lengthy, but the answer is yes. Stock options are also good. Just try to understand the difference between this thing. Why a lot of people prefer index option is because of the liquidity, the volumes over there. So the thing is, when you are trying to buy an in the money option in index or at the money option of index or even out of the money of that index, for every buyer who's sitting at 12 rupees, you will find another seller at 12.05, okay, or 12.5. Same might not be may not be the case in the equity options. In equity options, other than Nifty 50 options, what I've realized, like the stocks which are there in Nifty 50 and a couple of other stocks, you wouldn't find a lot of liquidity. So there is a high possibility you might get stuck. So let's take an example. If you go and check out SRFK options, or if you go and check out even for that matter, what is that? MRFK stock options, you will find the buyer is sitting at 50 rupees, the seller is sitting at 75. You won't be able to clear your head out. Second thing is, when you are actually dealing with stock options, you see options other, if you are buying, how do you make money? There has to be a good momentum in a small period of time. Within a few 2-3 days at max, there should be a good momentum, otherwise it becomes gambling. Now the thing is, how do you make out of that key movement kab hoga? It could be around some results or something, it could be around some major event, it could be around a crucial support and resistance. So my suggestion to beginners would be, until unless you are not able to master your basics, please don't venture into the stock options. But the answer is yes, once you have experience, you can make money through stock options. Personal disclaimer, even if I'm going with stock options, I usually do writing for the kind of capital I'm having and the kind of cushion it provides. So that's a standard disclaimer.
I'm myself an option writer. I do buy, but it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. Occasionally I do, but mostly, yeah.
yeah. And there are a couple of more questions. You talked about trading. How important is luck while trading? What's the importance of it?
So there's a quote: the harder you work, the luckier you get. No doubt, I still believe that luck, not just in trading, in all the areas, has some role to play. A lot of people are shy to talk about this thing because this actually kicks out the rationality on any this thing. But let's face out, even one of the biggest hedge fund managers who has written one book, I forgot the name, he also wrote that this is called some planned speculation or something like that, what he called the luck. And the thing is, luck has some important role to play, but you cannot just think that it's all about luck. If you think you are not lucky, so for example, I felt at one point of time I wasn't lucky, so all I did is I started giving 8 hours to the, not just market, to my studies and everything, and eventually I became lucky. So अगर आप luck नहीं बना पा रहे हो, so you can get n number of examples across the profession. KFC owner, he started at 66. Even Ray Kroc, who joined McDonald's, there's a wonderful movie or a series on that founder करके. So even he actually got his break at 55. Same goes with trader Jim Simons, the best trader we know so far. He also entered in hardcore into trading at 55, although he had some prior experience. But this thing, so luck has some role to play, but you cannot completely resort to कि भाई luck होगा तो ही कर सकते हैं. If you don't have luck, you can still become luckier by working hard.
When Henry Ford went to mid 30s only.
Yeah, there are plenty of examples. Even why I said luck is important now. Bill Gates, I read it in the Psychology of Money. That was an interesting thing. Bill Gates was actually studying into the same school at that point of time, the only school which had a computer at that point of time. So you can't say, but that doesn't mean he didn't work hard. He did work hard. People talk about Mark Zuckerberg cracking Facebook. He could be lucky, but we can't deny he was already smart because he was in Harvard. He's a Harvard dropout. So yes, luck to some extent, but you can still get lucky.
True, true, true. And just one simple question is like, if you are someone new into trading, see, we don't use technicals too much into investing bit, but
Mhm.
trading is used quite a bit while technicals are used quite a bit while trading. So, what kind of indicators or basic indicators should one start with?
Okay, you can actually start off with if you're doing intraday. I personally favor VWAP because I have made decent bucks using that, so that's there. But if you're very new, go with the simpler ones. Although I wouldn't suggest you to stick it for very long, but just to start off with, you can go with basic moving averages. Moving averages are actually lagging in nature. They give an indication little late, but to start off with, it is actually a good one. Second thing which you can, the easier one which I can say we can try is pivot points. So these are like two things which you can actually work upon, those things. Another, like you already have the volume panel out there, you need not to worry about that, and all those things would be there. And eventually try to mix price action with indicators. Don't go heavy on indicators. My experience for the last 11 years has been that ultimately price and volume is speaking more than all these indicators. So the more you spend time on the screen, you can understand कि यार ये volume ये बता रहा है, ये price ये बता रहा है, so I should actually do similar thing. So that would be my suggestion.
Actually, fair enough, because I still actually use moving average and pivot points a lot.
Even I do. That's not a problem. But you would also confess that yes, to great extent we also look into the volumes and price pattern, and accordingly we finally decide.
So I worked for a prop trading first desk, and we weren't allowed to use technical indicators for first 6 months. Only thing you can see is buy, sell, and the price action around it. Understand why the price moves. So maybe that's like a good lesson. And one final question: if I were to choose, say, stock for IPO investing purpose or trading purpose, how would I pick one? Like, how do I know that I should have gone for Zomato, or maybe I should have gone or not gone for Nuvoco, or which, I mean, how do I do that?
Purely you're asking from IPO perspective, or
I mean, IPO for maybe for short-term gains or listing gains, or maybe for long-term. It depends on, like, I mean, if I had different
okay,
purposes, how do I
so
choose?
always look into the brand value and the profitability. If the brand value is very high, you have heard of the name very often, you have been using its product at some point of time, and you have gone through the basic financials which you can find on any business daily or something. So once you have gone through the basic financial कि ये इस segment में काम करती है, these are the competitors, these are the things which they deal with. Once you have done that, the very first thing, if the brand is good, you can continue to hold it for some while. But historically, what it has been found is, I'm talking about the historical statistics, that 65 to 70% of the IPOs after their listing, they go up for a while, but 65 to 70% of these IPOs don't perform in the long run. In fact, they don't even stay towards their IPO listing price for 6 to 7 years. So my suggestion would be, if you're going for some random stocks which you haven't heard of more, but it is giving you a good listing gains, book at least 50 to 60% of your shares during the listing gain, and with the rest capital you can actually, so you are at least at peace कि मेरा पैसा तो अभी safe हो.
That's about it from our viewers. It's actually been a pleasure listening to you, Abhishek. बहुत मजा आया. Learned a lot from you and understood the nuances of what to do, what not to do. And I would like to sign off the session by quoting one of your lines from me: "Markets are like amoeba," and I actually believe in that. Thank you so much for coming on our platform, and we hope to see you in future again with us.
Thank you so much for inviting, Hitesh. It was a pleasure being a part of this. Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much. We'll be signing off, Abhishek, now. Thank you.
Sure.